You're watching Doc Review with me, Camelia Shambayati. In today's show, we're discussing A Revolution in 4 Seasons, directed by Jessie Deeter. And joining me in the studio, we have Carol Allen, who writes for CloseUpFilm.com, Movies One, and is an editor and film critic for AEA Digest. And beside her is Catherine Shakdam, who is a political analyst and director of the Shafakna Institute of Middle Eastern Studies. Now, A Revolution in 4 Seasons tells the story of two women with opposing political views fighting for different futures in Tunisia, the country that sparked the Arab Spring. Though, as this documentary shows, there are many unexpected challenges that lay ahead in trying to fight for a better future for your country. Let's have a look at our first clip.
Tout le monde rêve de démocratie, d'un lendemain meilleur.
أنا اليوم نحكي معاك باسمي واسم الشعب الكل اللي عايش في الأحلام الفين بطل الشارع وشوف لعبت ولات وحوش شوف الحاكم بالمتراك طاقتك ما على بالوش مادام
On m'a été considérée comme une des blogueuses de la Révolution. Je rêve à un pays qui ressemble à la Suède ou à la France, mais eux, ils rêvent d'un pays qui ressemble à la Turquie de leur rêve.
We can little by little show the drawbacks of drinking alcohol, the drawbacks of wearing bikini. على خاطر احنا يقولوا علينا إن نسوي بس خرجوهم من القراية، لا يعمل خدمة، لا يا سيدي.
I was the first person from this village to be elected in the parliament. Our people are waiting us to start writing the constitution.
They wrote one article of the constitution.
There is a change since the revolution. Now the Tunisian society is divided.
من البولي فما العنف اللي من المواطنين وفما العنف من البوليساء.
هي البزوان اكزيست اللي برشا نتاع الناس تطالب ان الحكومه تستقيل وان المجلس التاسيسي يفاق.
مشكلتنا نحن التونسيين كيف ندير الاختلاف بيننا.
Si on ne trouve pas la solution au mois de décembre, c'est la faillite du régime.
The hardest thing is to live up the ideas that we dreamed of when we had dictator.
كان بدك تحب تدخل السياسة بالله؟
بالطبيعة لازم تدخل السياسة.
غير كافية كما يقال زهرة واحدة لا تصنع الربيع.
I could have been in the United States, but you put me in Tunisia because you have this crazy idea that this country can be a democracy.
Now, was the trailer to the documentary. And welcome both of you to the show. Thank you very much, ladies, for coming on. And so this documentary takes you on a journey into the lives of two very different Tunisian women, and who both embraced the revolution but have completely different visions for the future of their country. Carol, if I could start with you as our guest film critic, what was your take on A Revolution in 4 Seasons?
Well, it was interesting and important to see the world of two women from a very different country, as I said, very different point of view, with whom we have more in common than we might think. I don't want to go too far ahead, but at one point, for example, both of them get married, they have their first babies, they both have to cope with a problem which is universal for women throughout the world. How do you have your place in the world and still fulfill your duties as a wife and mother? And interestingly, it is Jawara, the more conventionally Muslim lady, who solves it most easily in that she is involved in politics. She's a member of the Constituent Assembly, which is writing the constitution, and her husband, he helps her a lot. The other woman, Emna,
who's the secularist in the film?
She is a secular. Well, she is a Muslim, I think, in that she observes the fasting rules, but she doesn't wear the hijab.
Right.
Which is
so
a
she
very
wants to see a difference between religion and the rule of the country.
Yes, she wants a more she wants, as it says in the trailer, a state which is like Sweden or France, whereas the other lady is a member of the Islamic Democratic Party, and she wants an Islamic state which is still democratic, which is a concept we in the West probably find quite difficult because we tend to think Islamic, and we're very wary of it. So it was a very positive film from that point of view.
And quite refreshing to see that.
Yeah, Jawara, she really impressed me. I thought she was she's a lovely, intelligent, thoughtful woman, and she's not a scary Islamist at all. She's I'd like her to be my friend.
Catherine, I'd like to bring you in here. What was your take on the documentary?
I found it very interesting. I mean, to be fair with you, I didn't expect that I would actually enjoy it because, I thought it was going to be one of those, movie on the so-called Arab Spring. And but what I found particularly interesting is that you have those two women who, at the beginning of the documentary, you expect to be kind of, on opposite side of the river, I would say. They're actually quite similar in their hope for Tunisia, which is essentially to empower the people and have a system that represents, the people but doesn't betray, their identity. And I think that the issue here is really identity. Is how does an Islamic or self-identified Islamic country find itself, not just within the region, but within, I would say, this desire to be democratic and this desire to function, within the international community.
It is an interesting point that this documentary raises, that democracy is different for different people and has different interpretations.
I think for me that was the core issue, that it's maybe not talked about, but it's there, where you have someone who wants to have a secular democracy, like France, where the state and religion are quite separate, which is fine. And then you have the other point of view where she talks a lot about identity, how not to betray your heritage and your tradition. I think this is something that hasn't been talked about, this necessity for the Islamic world to actually have a democracy that looks like them, rather than looks like a Western democracy. We need to understand that there are more than just one way to be democratic. I don't think they're that different. I think they're very different in their approach to democracy or how they would like to formulate it, but they come across the same issues where, secularism is really good on paper to some extent, but then there's issue attached to that. And then the same thing when it comes to Islamism, where, there was a lot of issue. I mean, when you talk about terrorism, for example, or how there was this...
Actually, we're going to touch on that a bit later on. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's really great points you were making, but we're just going to move on now to our next clip from the documentary as we take a look at A Revolution in 4 Seasons at this following clip.
When you think that in order for me to be a progressive, I have to look like the Western people, to eat like them, to think like them, to have the same taste. This harms not only our identity, but the human identity itself. You cannot be just a subordinate to France or to the United States and forget about your religion, forget about your history, forget about your language, even your language, in order to be progressive, I think.
Carol, you mentioned a bit earlier how you were surprised to see, as a Westerner, a Muslim woman, a strong Muslim woman getting involved in politics. And she also has a strong family life and her husband stays at home. What was this like watching this for you?
Well, as I said earlier, it was a bit of an eye-opener. I mean, that particular point you raised there about the political woman who is well supported by her her Muslim husband, whereas the French-speaking woman who wants to be Emna, who wants to be like Sweden or France, her husband, who has spent a lot of time in America, behaves pretty much like a Western bloke. He goes into politics and leaves her at home holding the baby, with her life on hold.
And you can see their relationship became strained, whereas
Yes.
the others didn't.
Yes. I mean, it is actually very good PR for the idea of an Islamic State which is not repressive and which can be democratic. In fact, the clip we just saw was reiterating the points that Catherine just made.
And Catherine, what do you think? Do you think this documentary shows the positive side of Muslims?
Well, it shows definitely that first of all, number one, there is a space for women in politics and Islam. So this is not, the two don't have to clash. And, this idea that, for example, that women should not enter politics, I think is linked to, Wahhabism, Salafism, radical Islam, basically, where Islam is being decontextualized. It's taken away from its context, and it doesn't mean anything anymore. But what you see here is very interesting because she's hammering on the idea of identity. And again, I think that it's, we need to listen to what she's saying because it's just, it's a neo-colonial reaction, I would say, where, whether she's right or wrong, there is this idea that the West is trying to impose a certain socio-political model, and there's a reaction against it because people want to find their own way through democracy. And I think that if we want to have a real discussion on how we move forward in the Middle East, how we could enable and accompany those countries to actually find, their way and be democratic, we have to make sure that we don't impose any particular model. And if you look at Iran, for example, which is I know that people will say no, it's not, but it is a very progressive society. I think it's a perfect example of that, where it doesn't feel the constraint of colonialism. It doesn't need to be to identify itself against it. And I think that's what you see in Tunisia, is that Tunisia was, recently, historically speaking, recently freed or independent from France. And yet you see how France is very much, impacting the way that they think themselves forward in politics. And I think that the Islamists tapped into it, reacted against it, and somehow I would say, played it to their advantage. So it was a very good PR exercise, as you mentioned. But of course, some of them were genuine, some of them less so. And so, we saw the abuses that it led to. But again, I'm going to say that, for example, it took France 5 republics, 2 empires and a failed monarchy to finally be a democracy. So I think we need to give it time. We need to understand that you don't become a democratic state overnight.
I think, we're going to discuss more the future and the problems of the country that it faced. But we're just going to pause for now as we take a look at another clip from the documentary we're talking about, A Revolution in 4 Seasons, which shows us the life of Emna, a secularist and self-described blogger of the revolution.
اول خطوه توا باش نعملوها في الثوره خطوه صحيحه باش تكون مجلس تاسيسي باش نعاودوا دستورنا كما نحبوه احنا باش ننتخبوا العباد وباش نختاروهم العباد اللي باش يكونوا في المجلس التاسيسي.
En fin de compte, كلنا صارتنا تحديات قوية يعني كنت نجم تكون أقوى منا. The goal is to train community organizers. We believe that it's very important to have independent representatives in the Constituent Assembly elections. We're doing it Obama style actually here, grassroots movement.
عندكم une chance historique alors لازم تكونوا واعيين بها. Une chance historique pour prouver aux Tunisiens et au monde entier que انتم تحبوا تونس ما تحبوش رواحكم.
So I'd like to talk about the secularist movement in the documentary now. As we saw, that was Emna, who was supporting a secular country for Tunisia. And Carol, what are some of the struggles that she faced in the pursuit of power?
Some of the struggles that she faces, her chief campaign seems to be, her chief issue seems to be with the police, who don't appear to be democratic at all. And this is, this is something which is not just a problem in Tunisia. And the personal issues I mentioned earlier about coping with being a person, an effective person in the outside world, and with her baby. I actually found her, I have to admit, a less interesting character than Johara.
Really? Why is that?
But what is interesting as well, I knew very little, like nothing, about the history of Tunisia, really, until the Arab Spring happened. Again, an eye-opener for Westerners is we tend to think an Islamic state is going to be repressive, a secular state isn't. Well, in this instance, the dictator Ben Ali, was it?
Yes.
He was a secularist, and when we come to the elections, the fear is that the secular party is going to bring back another dictator. So, the points that Catherine was making earlier about not imposing our view, our Western view of democracy, on other countries is very important, because we do tend to think, well, we've got it right, and you know, in the case of Britain, we had an empire, we had colonies, we know how to run things, and you actually have to respect what is there. It's quite natural for human beings to want more independence, to want a more democratic state, but I think they have to find their own way of doing it, and it rather looks like Tunisia is doing this now.
Do you think it's in a better state now? I mean, do you get a sense from the documentary that before the revolution it was in a bad state?
I get the sense from the documentary. I'm not always clear from the documentary what exactly was going on in Tunisia before. For example, Johara refers to the fact that women have had the vote for a long time. Then we get a caption with the first lot of elections in the documentary. This is the first time there have been free elections ever in this country. I know, can you explain that?
Yes, I'm going to ask Catherine, actually. Could you give us
well, women were given the
overview?
right to vote. I can't remember when. It was quite early on. I think it was the 1950s or something. Because of France. And then, when Tunisia became independent, it kind of carried on. And as you mentioned, Ben Ali was very, I would say, secular, very progressive, at least, by France's standards, and which is why he was, quite well liked by the French government. There's a difference in between, where all people can vote and they actually have a right to say something. And I think this is the problem here, is that it's not because you live in a secular, republic, for example, that you actually have a say in anything. And I think that's what they refer to. And the sad thing is that I get the sense that, somehow both of them felt that their revolution, the way that they imagined themselves to become free, was taken away from them, for different reasons. So, secularism didn't happen the way Emna wanted. And then, for the other lady, it's, she felt, I think, betrayed by this move towards, radicalism, where there was an imposition of certain views where she hoped that it was more an invitation to. And I think this is the main problem here.
And I wanted to mention another part in the documentary where Johara gave a powerful speech in Parliament talking about how they have to smash the terrorist stereotypes and work together. What did you make of that scene?
Well, I admired the power of her speech. That wasn't the scene that made the biggest impression on me, though. One that did, which is, again, very important to the image of Islam in the West, was at the end, towards the end, because terrorism isn't mentioned very much in the film, although I understand it is a problem that there was
both facing the Muslims and the secularists in the country.
I mean,
isn't just the Muslim problem.
Indeed. But there is a terrorist incident towards the end of the film, and Johara says, this is awful, this is not what my father taught me, this is not what is in the Quran, we must fight it.
And that brings us in nicely to our next clip. This is exactly what we're talking about. And let's take a look now at our final clip from the documentary, A Revolution in 4 Seasons, which shows how the issue of terrorism in the country is a threat to everyone.
Terrorism is in the heart of the capital. It's in Bado. It's in the museum next to the parliament, and especially I was there as a deputy, and I was there as an ordinary citizen. This is not the Islam I belong to. This is not the Islam that my father teaches me, and this is not the Islam that I read in the Quran. I can't read any verse in the Quran that justifying what they are doing now. It's a religion which preaches tolerance, which preaches peace. Then, okay. Yes. We have to fight them.
That was a really moving moment in the documentary. You could see that fight for struggle. I mean, you get the sense that the revolution was in fact the easy part and the problem lies in rebuilding the country. Is that the impression you got also?
Yes, and isn't that always the problem with revolutions? You know, it's all very well to tear something down, but then you have to find the right way of building something up. And another point that that lady made earlier in the film was the difficulty of reconciling being an idealist with being a politician. And that, again, it's another universal point that she's making there.
And yeah, it's a very human story that this documentary tells also. And so 6 years on, Catherine, from the Arab Spring, what problems still persist in the country? We saw briefly there was an issue of terrorism.
Well, I think Tunisia, interestingly enough, I mean, started it off, and it's a blueprint for the, it's a compounding of everything. All the issues that other countries in the Middle East are facing right now, which is terrorism, this discussion, secularism, Islamism. What do we do? Could we find another way? And I think her silence speaks volume really, and it's really moving, because what do you say in the face of radicalism? What do you say before terrorism? Terrorism doesn't speak for any religion. So, here it's Islam, but, it could be Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, it doesn't matter. There is no religion that, preaches, violence. It's just ludicrous. It's a political construct. And I think that what you have here is the desire, is this attempt to have pluralism. And this is what I heard, throughout the documentary.
Acceptance and tolerance.
Yes, that people need to find a way to live together, to find a way to disagree, but not hate each other. You can hate each other's ideas. It doesn't mean you have to hate each other and enact on that hatred. And I think this is the main issue that you have, is that people have been taught, for whatever reason, that they live in this kind of binary construct where they have to be either, on this side or that side, hate each other or love each other. It doesn't have to be this way. And I think that a lot has to do with the way that the revolution was spoken out in the media. That kind of imprinted this idea again that they have to be against each other. Clearly, those two women have very similar paths. Even like I said, they're sitting on different sides of the river, but again, they're facing the same challenges. They just approach them differently.
Point. And Carol, would you agree? Is there a lot of misinformation in the mainstream media?
I think there probably is. Of course, I'm not in a position to know what's false and what's not. But yes, Catherine is absolutely right when she says that we can live together with different viewpoints. I hate what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And that's what we need to actually get, not just in Tunisia and not just in the UK, but throughout the world.
And is this one of the most powerful messages you get from the documentary?
Yes. Yes.
We're nearing the end of the film, this program now, and I'm just wondering, what would you have liked to see in the documentary also?
What would I? Well, I would have liked a little bit more explanation of the context. I got a little bit confused. I was very aware there was a Democratic Islamic Party because Juara was part of it. They were taking a heck of a long time over writing the Constitution, somebody pointed out. A bit like Brexit, really. And then, suddenly, when the president, or was he the prime minister, I can't remember, decided to cede and say, OK, we'll have another election, suddenly the Constitution was in place. I didn't realise how quickly that could be. So there were certain things about clarity which I would criticise.
Would you recommend the film? Final 30 seconds to you.
Oh, yes, I'd be very interested. It's American. I don't know where it's been shown in America. It's a sort of film that might crop up on BBC 4 or Channel 4 or something here. And I think it would be an interesting one for us all to watch.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, ladies, for coming on Doc Review. And that's it for this episode. Thanks to both my guests and to you for watching. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Facebook, where you can find us on @DocReviewShow. That's @DocReviewShow. And do let us know your views on today's film, and you can even suggest a documentary that you would like us to review. I've been Camilla Shambayati, and see you on the next episode of Doc Review.